at all.
Hello, and welcome to the Saladcast on Sunday, the 31st of May, 2020. I'm your host, Dan Train. Joining me today, Zachary Burgess.
Yes.
And Robert Kemp.
I think I'm a bit summer stinky.
Stinking it up.
It's a specific sort of not quite sweating enough for it to be like that full-on sweaty smell, but just a little bit of sweat, which creates a different smell entirely.
Your house is a bit of a sun trap, to be fair.
It is, yeah. It's got all the all the walls are sun facing,
right?
At some point, at various points during the day, so it's kind of boned, and it gets worse obviously gets worse as the day goes on, and then insulation occurs, which just means it exudes heat at night.
What, lack of insulation or insulation?
Oh, the existence of insulation, because it seems to absorb all the heat during the day, and then at night it just goes be hot at night.
How is that insulation? How does that work?
I don't know, but I thought that's like part of how cavity wall kind of ends up working. Like the cavity ends up getting hot instead somehow.
Oh right, okay. I thought it was like a barrier to avoid the transfer of the heat, the energy.
But
I
it's
guess
not like a vacuum, right? It's just air, so that can still get hot itself, but I suppose it slows it down, and then the cavity in your brickwork and stuff is still hot, and it comes out. My house in Needham was similar, actually. When I grew up there, my room was the worst, of course.
It's funny, isn't it? These modern houses, you'd think that would improve, but they're just thinner built. Like that, the house that I grew up in, the big one, the Victorian one or whatever, that was so cool in the summer. And not that it was warm in the winter because it was too big to heat properly, I guess. Not that it was massive, but it didn't have much to hold the. It had wooden floors, right, and rather than carpets and stuff like that. It just wasn't super cozy, I would say. But it was definitely cool in the summer. And now I'm in a Victorian terrace in London, and I'm in the basement, so it is also cool in a similar way. But I think that's because I'm in the ground, maybe.
Yeah.
And I have the garden, that I can open the big doors up to get a bit of air in there. So quite lucky. I've got a desk fan here that I don't know if I mentioned on the cast before, but I got one of those weird looking Dyson Cool Me. I'm a bit embarrassed to buy anything by Dyson given their politics and shit. But anyway, I was like, well, I'm going to be working from home and it's going to be a heat wave. Then I better get one of those. And I haven't really needed it yet, to be fair.
Oh, ours has been getting some use.
You've got the Eye of Sauron, right? The round Dyson.
Yeah, we've got a Pure Cool. Which, to be fair, I can't really recommend for the money you pay for it. I mean, I like it, but it's a bit more noisy than I was hoping for.
Yeah, they're interesting.
It's one of those ones with an air filtration system as well, and a pollen detector and all that kind of jazz. And it's that's broken, that part of it.
Yeah, I've got that filtration stuff, but because I haven't used it enough, I don't know if it really does much. Apart from the air blowing directly at you is fine, but I don't know if it actually filters the room.
I think bits of it work. I've used it when I have been a bit sniffly and a bit because I'm not as bad with hay fever and allergies as you, but I will get a little bit from time to time, and I have just pointed it at my face and let it run, and I felt better.
I don't get that anymore.
Oh, really?
Pretty much, yeah.
Wow.
It was Suffolk, evidently, because in London I do not get hay fever, literally at all.
Because you're a mile away from most plants.
Well, I don't know, because I know people in London who do get it bad, and apparently it's to do with the type of pollen of the grasses or whatever. So people do get hay fever in London, but I don't. Yeah. But I do get it in Suffolk.
I think that's the thing, yeah, because there's different sizes of pollen as well, affect different people as well. That's how this. Well, at least that's the measurement that the Dyson thing would take. It would give you a small pollen count and a big pollen count.
Yeah, it used to be an absolute nightmare, hay fever for me, constant, and I'd have to have not just antihistamine tablets, but I'd have the spray and everything. Some of them worked,
But
and
we ended up
sometimes
having a
and some they
stash
didn't.
here just in case.
Yeah, well, the thing that I know still exists is cat allergy, right? So I can tell
Oh,
that.
right.
All I have
Yeah,
to do is be around a cat hair for a short period, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is still a thing.
Sorry about that.
No, you're not. I mean, you're sorry, but everyone, literally
sorry.
everyone loves their cat more than
I'm
my
sorry
suffering.
for you. Does that work?
Yeah. No one's really sorry. They're like, yeah, but cats are awesome, so fuck you. Yeah, which I sort of understand. Not really, but never mind. I shouldn't admit that I don't get it.
But you can't understand. That's the thing. It's not possible.
What if you don't have cats?
Or if you actually can't be around them.
If you can't be around them,
it's not possible for you to have that potential connection. So you won't
Yeah.
have experienced crazy
This
cat
is true.
love.
Yep. They don't
You won't
love
have
anyone.
experienced a cat
That's why I
shoving
was screwed.
her head
They
in my
don't love
armpit.
anyone. They just want you to feed them.
That's why I was screwed. Because, I wasn't allergic initially, and then I got allergic. Not very
Ah.
allergic, but enough that it's annoying. So it's like, I can't have a cat, even though I really would if I could. Maybe. Well, no, I don't.
Can you not?
I think that's true.
You always used to have a cat, though, didn't you?
Yes, that's what I said. I got allergic.
Ah. Apparently, it does get worse with exposure, right? It's not. You'd think it'd be the other way.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say, I'm not 100% perfect, even with Minnie, but that's like she has to rub herself in my face.
Yeah,
or like
yeah,
I
you're
have
fine.
I have to do the bad thing of like giving her a big ruffle or something, and then shoving my hand in my eye, and then it's like, oh, that was a mistake. But
Minnie's cool. She's not
glad
that.
you agree.
I think
Some cats are
I think
much
I've
more
reached
annoying
the
than
point
Minnie.
where it's like I kind of would like to have a pet at some point, but I just can't withstand pet smell. Any pet smell.
What sort of pet would you get a small pet for your? No, you couldn't keep one in your room, would you? Or
No, maybe. But that's the trouble.
Strategy.
If you keep a pet in a small room, you're going to be exposed even more to the pet smell, whatever pet it is.
You
And
need
that's
another
probably the bit
chinchilla.
I can't manage. Yeah, I don't remember if chinchilla smelled. I remember the smell of like sand, the bathing sand.
Lizards.
Lizards smell a lot.
Do they?
Yeah.
I don't need, like, if you tank them up properly, aren't they, like, pretty well contained, and so the smell's not.
That's
Yeah.
not how a tank works.
Well,
It's not an airtight seal that you just wedge the animal inside of.
it could be though.
I mean, obviously fish, but even fish smell if you don't clean them very regularly.
Sure. Yeah. You'd have to stay on top of it.
Didn't you have fish
I
too?
can't recommend.
before? Zach?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I had
yeah,
a
fish.
fish.
I wouldn't say. Well, I can't really remember budgies smelling that much, but they do make a hell of a mess.
You guys had all kinds of
You need only
pets.
look at the huge mounds of poop, though, that they do smell. You just don't recognise it.
Yeah, I guess I didn't. I never really. Well, I suppose I didn't have a problem with it. It
No.
didn't really stink to me. But
Apparently,
like,
birds used to be much more common as pets. And,
Yeah.
and I don't know what happened, like the dead parrot
Yeah.
sketch and all that. That was perfectly not.
Oh,
It was
yeah.
almost more common than, not more common than cats and dogs, but like more common than I don't know, hamsters.
It's
It wasn't-
because everybody realised that in the old days, most of the people keeping birds were doing it very wrong.
Right? Is that why? Is that really why?
Probably.
I don't know anyone who has any birds.
No, I don't anymore. I don't think budgies can be cool.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, Bart. No, I couldn't remember his name. Bart used to love the engine noise from F-Zero X.
Maybe.
Send him bonkers. Actually, that might just be him shouting constantly. Turn that shit off.
Yeah. Could well be.
Hey, this is a weird thing for you. I don't normally get this, but like, so I'm a fan of beers, right?
A beer connoisseur.
I'm a beer connoisseur. Let's put it that way. But weirdly, when I poured this fairly standard hop house lager into this glass, I got a whiff of it, and it didn't like. This is going to be hard to explain. It's like it smelled like beer, obviously, but it smelled like the smell of beer that I don't think I've. It smelled like I was a kid smelling beer, right? Not that I've been sort of like used to beer for God knows how many years. It was just it was just that smells like Dad's drink, and I'm like, what? Where has that come from? Why have I suddenly had that odd flashback?
Just smells evoking memories.
Well, the other day I went into the kitchen and then suddenly had a smell that reminded me of like a canal boat holiday from childhood.
Oh wow!
It was the smell of I was thinking about it and I was like, wait, that's the smell of a chemical toilet. I think it must have been like a combination of like a waft of chlorine coming in off the hot tub and then like the kitchen smell combined to make that smell of like chemical toilet.
That it's so weird, isn't it? Like the smell of chlorine and poop or whatever, and you're like, wow,
good times.
I remember Glastonbury. That was awesome.
Oh man, that's a good one.
I don't know about you guys. I'm getting a lot of nostalgia lately, and I don't like it.
Oh, what? Just because you're stuck in like
just reminiscing about shit. Yeah, annoying.
Maybe you have to embrace it and meditate through it. I have no idea if that's true or not.
I don't know.
I'm
getting worried that I only like old things, and
oh well, there's that.
Yeah, that's annoying.
That's what you have video games for. Go play some old ass games because they're always still good.
Yeah, but you
don't need to worry about liking old video games.
They're not. That's the thing, though. They're not always so good. Like there's like a phase of video games which I find really difficult to go back to.
Well, obviously, it's like I can't go back to like N64 or anything because of the resolution.
Yeah,
that's a different problem. But it's not like
you could just about play Mario 64, I would say. But
no, that's fine. Yeah. And F-Zero is fine. There are like you could probably do Banjo-Kazooie just fine.
Yeah, but with F-Zero, you might as well play the GameCube one, right? I guess.
Sure, X is its own thing.
X is its own thing. Yeah. I mean, X is very different to the SNES one. You know, yeah.
Yeah.
Not very. You know what I mean?
X is more like X, but yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, because I think maybe. It's because there was that Tony Hawk reveal and like the Command and Conquer remake is coming out and
I
don't know, it's not remake but you know remaster and like it's like oh man.
Well,
what do you think about that CNC thing?
It looks like they're doing a pretty good job from what I could tell, including like remastering all of the music and remixing it and everything.
It's not just the remaster of the music as well, is it? They've actually got some live. Like he's like the original guy has done like remasters of the originals as like on the original samples and all that stuff, so it sounds like the originals but modern.
But he's
also got his band as well, and they're doing some more live stuff for it, and it's like that's interesting.
And like they are actually, I don't know if it's toggleable or something, but they're changing the gameplay right so that the build system is less annoying, and you know you can queue up builds and stuff.
You can tailor it to how original you want or with modern control, so like you can swap the left and right click so it mirrors more modern RTS games. Like you can queue up build orders if you want, which you couldn't do before.
Yeah, I mean that's all quality of life stuff. Is pretty cool.
Yeah,
I can't.
There's some scroll
tell
options,
if that
so you
game
can
would
scroll like modern games, you know, things like that.
Would that game be good though? It's really old.
I don't know. That's the thing. I think I'd find it quite dull. I don't know.
I think Red Alert might be okay. I mean, you spend a lot of time like building up your base, and
Well, you do if you play it that way, I guess. But that's how we always played RTS games. We were turtles.
Yeah.
I'm forever a turtle. I can't get out of that habit. I've never been able to get out of that habit.
I mean, I'm not a very good player. I mean, Barlow used to just crush everything. Which was just, and you'd look over at his base. Like it was hilarious when we were playing generals, and
that's generals, isn't it? That's generals. When you actually know anything about it, is incredibly easy to like exploit money and just get infinite money and then just build infinite super weapons. It's like it's not a well balanced game, generals.
Yeah, that's fair. That's true. But it was hilarious just watching. Like his base was just fields and fields of the money generating building, which in that case was like the black market or whatever. I know everyone had an equivalent, Like the China one was kind of annoying because
Chinese
it was like a
hackers.
hacking center, but then you had to train little hackers and put them into the thing. And I think he just chose the terrorist GLA or what they're called just because that has the simplest manner acceleration, basically.
Well, the UN drop zone is pretty simple for the Americans.
Yeah, you could shoot those down though, can't you? The supply planes.
I don't know if you could.
Can't
I
remember.
was never
Anyway.
entirely certain about the flying over mechanics.
Those games were sort of okay. I don't know. I enjoyed.
Well,
those
they
at
were
the
sort
time.
of okay, but like they were okay for like spectacle, not so much for balance.
Yeah.
Like if
It'd
you
be
wanted to
interesting-
just fire constant super weapons, it was a good time.
Well, here's the thing, because it'll be interesting to see how that side in particular holds up, right? Because that's one of the things they're doing with this remaster is going quite all in on making it onlineable.
Right. I mean, you kind of have
So-
to make it a successful modern
Yeah.
launch, I suppose, and to
But
make.
it's like, yeah, how are they doing any tweaks to like balance it out for online, or are they literally leaving it as the
Leaving it
original and
as.
like, here you go?
Yeah.
Can I edit the ini file to make a mammoth tank shoot dogs?
You could probably do it through an in-game menu at this point.
Yeah,
The
can I make a
remaster.
flame boat?
The thing is, it didn't actually shoot dogs. It shot like
No,
dog
no.
bites, which was not as fun.
No, you couldn't visibly see the dogs just come out of them and murder the infantry, which is a shame. But it was quite funny having that, it would just go and everyone
want-
around it would die.
Have you? Yeah. We'll move on to this a bit in our news section, I guess. But like dogs in video games, like they're as enemies, they're often like pretty OP and like more powerful than a person with a gun. Have you noticed that? I don't know. They move
Well,
faster.
Even in COD, they're almost one-hit kills. I think
Yeah.
when they've been in games with a kill streak, because they would charge around the map and just be like arf arf arf, and if they get you, you're gone.
Yeah.
But they if you shot them, they would die pretty quick. But
I mean, in real life, dogs are not that threatening, are they? No matter how you train them. I guess they could be they're terrifying if
pretty
you're a normal person, but if you're like a soldier with a gun, then I think you're probably okay. Especially if you've got any kind of protection. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
yeah, I don't know. I'd be scared of a dog.
I think it's the psychological kind of factor, isn't it?
Be scared of a tiger.
Oh, tigers are terrifying, but they stalk you, right? They kill you because they come from the side and you don't notice.
Be an interesting version of Call of Duty if you just summon a wave of tigers instead. Wave of tigers.
Weather babies. I've forgotten about weather babies.
I wonder if I've got the thing about that CNC thing is I wonder if I've just got a bit better at games because I haven't really played either of Red Alert or CNC kind of since it came out.
No.
So I'm not really and I found the original CNC in particular like really quite hard.
At the time, it
and
felt
I was
quite hard.
I was a bit better at Red Alert and
Red Alert had
what-
like timed missions though, didn't it? Like indoor, like weird corridor bits.
yeah, it had a lot of like, oh, you've got 6 units, make it work kind of stuff.
Yeah,
Like work your way through it.
like that original Commando mission in CNC.
Mission 6, yeah, that bastard. That was usually where I started to struggle. I know you guys got through it, but like, yeah,
But
I had
that's
real
only 'cause
problems
we-
at that point.
played it constantly, didn't we?
I don't think I got past the commando mission that frequently, though. I think when I'd replay it, I'd get there and be like, I really can't be bothered to put the effort in at this point.
Mm.
I'm
then
sure
there
I
were
got through it at
Tanya
least
missions.
once.
In Red Alert, but I
Yeah.
feel like that was as
They
bad
were
as that
easier,
commando
yeah.
mission. Yeah.
Well, I think a lot of the time in the Red Alert ones, they start off as like commando-esque, but then you get more units quicker.
That's true. Yeah, yeah.
Apart from the spy mission in Red Alert, that was a fucking pain in the ass.
Oh yeah, the spy mission and the dogs. There you go. Yeah, that was nice.
Oh yeah, because the dogs could sniff you out, right? But the normal infantry couldn't.
You were screwed if the dogs
Yeah,
find. Because what did the spy even have? I guess
he
he had
didn't
a
really
pistol.
have a weapon, I
No.
guess. But
And
it
he
was
had
just
a
like
stupid
all
Sean
you had
Connery
to do
accent.
was just like it was basically the
A
castle
stealth
from
thing.
Zelda, obviously.
Right. Yeah.
You were avoiding the patrols of dudes, and you had to hack all the power plants to turn off the Tesla coils and all this crap.
And the castle from Zelda was a reference to Metal Gear Solid, anyway, wasn't
Well,
it? No, sorry, Metal Gear, I guess.
Metal Gear,
Or was it Metal
yes.
Gear Solid? I don't know.
Probably
Either.
predated Solid.
Yeah, it was the same year though, 98, right? I think.
Yeah, it was hard to reference something in the same year.
Yeah, in the same year. Yeah.
But all those RTSs always had a mission like that at some point. Like Total Annihilation had missions like that, where it was just like, here's the mission where you have a really limited pool of units and you have to do a very precise set of maneuvers to navigate a place where you can suddenly expand. I think I got stuck on a couple of missions in Total Annihilation. Except, I guess one of the missions that I did get stuck on in Total Annihilation was one where it drops you on a tiny island in a sea map, and if you don't fucking get ships very quickly, then the enemy ships just kill you. That one was more of a race against time than a stealth mission or anything.
Yeah, TA was another one I wasn't really very good at. It was like the perfect game for turtle play in a way, because it's just like turtle up, get the big ass cannons. There you go. You can shoot the AI, no trouble. But like, if you were trying to do it, I don't know, I guess semi properly, then I found it really tricky.
TA was a weird game. It's like kind of weirdly soulless somehow. Although
that's the whole point, though, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess so.
It's just a bunch of robots fighting other robots.
Yeah.
I mean, it was cool as hell.
It was cool,
though.
yeah.
Setting up like aircraft patrol routes and
yeah, there were so many different combinations
your, like,
of
repaired
vehicles.
Aircraft to just go around and repair everything.
Yeah, that was great.
And then you realise that went horribly wrong when they get to Planetary Annihilation, and it's just like, hey, the main tactic to defend the planet is just set an aircraft factory to patrol the entire planet, and then just make 1 billion aircraft, so no matter when the enemy comes into your atmosphere, they immediately get murdered by 1 million aircraft. It's just like, that's a real bad... It's just like, it's the worst kind of defense where you just like spam 1 million units and just don't even pay attention, because they just automatically sit there and deal with it.
I can't remember how it was balanced in the original TA, but I mean, I remember there was a version of everything in every other thing, right? Every slot seemed to be filled. So like you had the aircraft builders, but you also had the robot builders and the vehicle builders, right?
Yeah.
But I was always like, well, but aircraft they can fly around really fast, and they don't.
But they aren't
need to worry about
powerful
terrain.
nanolathe.
Right. What was the most powerful nanolathe? Was it the mech one?
Commander.
Oh,
Well, the Commander, obviously.
Yeah. I do remember having a lot of aircraft. And of course, they're difficult in an RTS because they just fly around in circles. I mean, they could land, couldn't they? They were all VTOL, right? In in TA, but
then they could. It's just the way they fought as well. They were so cool because they would they wouldn't just sit there stationary and shoot at stuff. They would jink around. It was that
was cool.
Yeah, the aircraft in particular looked real nice. I don't know. I just think of StarCraft in comparison at the time, where things just fly to place and sit there and shoot.
And just sit there, yeah. RTS.
But on the other hand, that is more effective than Total Annihilation. Because as soon as you get, like, your fighter aircraft engaging other aircraft, the map just blossoms into a random assortment of icons, because they're all, like, flying around all over the place trying to get angles on each other. And it takes forever for anything to actually die.
Yeah, exactly. It's cooler in concept than in practice.
I suppose that's where the idea of like unit caps and stuff started to crop up. Not long after.
Well, before really, I guess, because that was the whole point of StarCraft, really, wasn't it? With its
was it a Warcraft? Oh, I suppose Warcraft
building houses or whatever, the equivalent of houses.
I suppose you're right. Yeah, the farm system, isn't it, in Warcraft? Yeah, I forget about that.
But obviously then it was probably a limit of like actual computing power, not actually a gameplay thing necessarily.
Maybe, yeah. And then TA and Red Alert and CNC were just like, yeah, whatever, build what you want. Go nuts.
Well, RTS games.
Yeah. I've never been very good at them in fairness.
No.
RTS just isn't my forte.
And we never moved into the Dota style. What's it called?
MOBAs,
MOBA.
like proper MOBAs, I
Proper
suppose,
MOBA,
as opposed to
yeah.
the modern MOBA-like. But,
I don't know what happened when MOBA started. Why? I'm surprised that you didn't get into them at all, Zach. Actually,
I toyed with playing Dota 2 at one point.
Yeah, but Dota 2 is kind of quite late, I suppose, if you think about into the kind of phenomenon, because League was already going and everything, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it was the same reason we never got into the actual RTS gameplay, because it's all about just like so precise clicking and constantly clicking and constantly managing those tiny little movements.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, what was the StarCraft thing? Like actions per second rating or something? That was how the pros are measured by, like how basically how fast they click and input shortcuts and do all that stuff was like a stat. And it's like, the higher your APS, the better StarCraft player you are.
Like the best we could do was like World and Conflict, where you had 2 whole different extra buttons to push for the skills.
You know what? World and Conflict, though, I felt like was actually more properly strategic, if you see what I mean, rather than just like you could put a unit in a place and that was your strategy, rather than having to be precise about zoning and. I have to keep my distance like approximately 1 pixel away from this other guy so I can shoot them and they can't shoot me. And it's like, and World and Conflict, like it was great because it kind of did away with all that. You couldn't move your units that precisely because they took time to turn around and move realistically. And oh man, we've said this billions of times on this podcast, but holy cow, that a game like that needs to come back. It was so good. I mean, it says something when an RTS's multiplayer can draw me in, because it was a fun multiplayer, 4-on-4 multiplayer that works.
What's that team doing? What did they? Probably Dawn of War or something. Or
no, they're a Ubisoft story.
The Division
studio. Yes, that's it.
The Division.
Is it Massive Entertainment?
That's kind of sad. I don't know.
Yeah.
I know some people like The Division.
Yeah, because you're thinking of the other guys, aren't is it
Relic?
Relic, yes, that's it. Because they are also now a subsidiary of something else, really. They don't really do a whole lot of their own stuff anymore.
I guess Creative Assembly is still.
They still do their own thing. The Total War series is still unique and still going.
Halo Wars 2 was not so great, but
it's fine.
It's fine. Anyway, should we do the news?
Is it news o'clock?
I think it's time for the news.
Let's do the news.
What's going on in the world of video games?
Not much, but it will.
E3 season is coming without E3.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, so effectively what's happening is E3 has been key lead in that he kind of said early on anyway that he wasn't going to be doing E3 anyway, even before E3 was cancelled. So instead, he was trying to organise something called Summer Game Fest, but the cancellation of E3 and all this lockdown malarkey has meant, he can basically claim all that for himself. So he's effectively just putting together a schedule of all the of a chunk at least of the press conferences,
right?
Or what would have been press conferences and some other events here and there. We've already had the Unreal 5 demo from him, or when he interviewed Epic about that, which we've covered before. But we've also got a bit of a schedule of what to expect out of everything. Some of this is associated with Summer Game Fest, some of it isn't, but it's all kind of rolling into this season at least. So the one thing that has happened, I suppose, as part of this was the Wholesome Direct, which is a Wholesome Games, I guess, is kind of a what do you call it? Like a collaborative group of indie developers who are coming together to effectively be like, hey, we're making games to make you feel and not be all violent and stuff. Okay. I know that's kind of a reductive sentence, but that's what you kind of get from the word wholesome, right? It's like these are supposed to be Animal Crossing.
Right. Yeah, I would definitely say Animal Crossing is. I mean, wholesome has kind of negative connotations for me. I think it's wholesome kind of means boring, rather and also so does family friendly. But I don't know. Yeah. But there's definitely a good way of. I know exactly that Animal Crossing is, I guess, wholesome.
Yeah, I'm unfortunately great. With you. Like the majority of games that would label themselves as wholesome, I look at and I think, I'm not sure I would have any fun or attachment to this. I can see exactly what you're doing, and I kind of appreciate developers that go out there and try and grab hey, let's do non-violent. Let's do
wholesome makes it sound like it's like moralizing or something. Like
a little,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas Animal Crossing or something is not doing that.
Exactly, like something that's trying to walk an ethical high ground that I might not agree with.
Yeah, like an after-school special type thing.
Yeah, I guess. Sonic says no.
Yeah. First you say no. I mean, that's an important message. I think Sonic should repeat that one.
And unfortunately...
in fact, they should redo that with the Sonic movie. Sonic.
Oh, they really should.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
What if they've already done it in Boom? We wouldn't know.
I bet me still wants to go watch Boom properly.
That's no good.
Then you get out of there.
It's good advice.
So the unfortunate thing about this Direct was that I think quite a large portion of the games there kind of fall into that this is Animal Crossing / Harvest Moon category.
What? Trying to get that Stardew money?
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, there's quite a few farmy looking games. Or
I hope that Stardew guy made a lot of money out of it, because that must have been a lot of work.
Oh, sure. In some ways, what game of that scale isn't? But he kept going it as well. It wasn't just what came out. He did that multiplayer thing.
Crazy.
There were some things that mildly caught my eye, shall we say, in this thing that I think might elevate themselves out of the cliche, I suppose, that we're walking here. It opened with something called Button City that had a sort of immediate appeal with me, and that it's like, oh, it's a game about saving the local arcade, and you get to play the arcade games, and it's kind of presented in a sort of abstract way, and it's about a crew of kids just sort of getting into trouble and stuff like that whilst trying to save the local arcade. It seemed all right, actually. It looked like it might have a little bit of humor to it. Okay, we'll see how that comes out. Other little picks here: Calico, just because, hey, it's another sim game, but it's about managing a cat cafe. But you can get a cat mount, and the cats look extremely wobbly when you hold them up and wobble them around. It's so cute.
A wobbly cat mount? That doesn't sound stable.
You can have a cat mount. Yeah.
As long as you're not mounting the cats.
I mean, there's one sense. Cat that's in that thing that was like huge, and so you're riding it literally. Cat mounts. The lockdown simulator, effectively. It's just called Rainy Season.
We don't need a simulator for that.
No, we don't. But it was about a kid being at home during the rainy season, not really being able to go out and do stuff, and so and then experiencing surreal events inside his own home. The trailer had him walking in what will look like a room filled with just boxes and storage stuff, and there was a ghost thing watching TV, and the ghost's like, "All right, you need anything?" What are you doing here? And it's kind of like, I'm just watching telly. Very casually. And he's like, all right, bye. I don't know. It was a weird tone. Kind of fun. I noticed that Skatebird now seems to have had its release date pushed back another year. To not
I
this
remember
year.
that. Yeah. Okay.
So that showed up briefly. But it may have some competition from a game called Ollie Oop, which is basically Skate Dog. So there you go. Skatebird versus Skate Dog. It's on. That was kind of it. Honestly, the rest of the games, as I say, were either the stuff Spiritfarer turned up, which we'd seen at some other event. I can't remember which. Which is the game where you're sort of managing a boat, effectively, like a really big boat, and building a town on a boat. And the idea is you're guiding dead spirits to the afterlife. You're like a dead spirit town boat. There we go. So that turned up, and it looked the same. Still not out. And that was it. And I think this response from both of you is kind of the right response.
Can you hear the sound of my computer whirring? It's my version of crickets. Probably not.
The Wholesome Direct. But coming up in the Summer Game Fest schedule, in a few days' time, June the 4th, get hype for PS5, the future of gaming. That's what they've called it. It's not the PlayStation meeting or a state of play. It's PS5 : the future of gaming. And they're showing Sony like advertising it with a picture of basically the new light bar coming through the controller. We've already seen the controller, so it's like weird to have like a shadow version of the controller with just the lit up bits. It's like we know what this looks like.
You don't need to tease the reveal of the controller when you've already revealed it. Yeah.
No, we want it's the main console. We haven't.
What if it's not?
Yeah, what if that's actually the PlayStation 5 and the PlayStation 5 is just a big version of the controller?
It's just a giant controller.
Ooh, interesting. What if it's Stadia?
Yeah, there is no PS5.
Yeah.
No.
They already showed that V-shaped thing.
Yeah.
And, the V. It's going to happen.
Well, they already talked about the hardware quite extensively.
But the hardware could be in the cloud.
It's going to be a box.
It's going to be a box. It's got to be a box. They wouldn't be calling it PS5, surely.
Consoles get less interesting looking over time.
I mean, is it going to be what sort of slant are they going to have to it this time? Because we're not going to have the George Foreman smooth
of
curl,
the PS3, the original PS3.
Yeah, the PS4 has done slots and trapezoids.
It's the V. We already know.
It's going to be the V.
It's going to be the V. I refuse to believe.
I no longer understand. I mean, it doesn't really matter, but it sort of matters because I think the original Xbox One, was pretty ugly.
Oh, really?
Yeah, wasn't into that box.
I mean, it's not a looker, but it's like it doesn't look out of place in an entertainment center.
No, it looks fine, and therefore everything can just look fine. I don't really mind. The controller's very important though.
Oh, sure. And
the thing about the PS4 is nothing. It looks fine, whatever. It's just like the buttons are annoying and not physical, and it's quite hard to actually use. At least that's what I found with my PS5 Pro. Is I'm not very good with the capacitive buttons wherever the hell they're supposed to be.
Are they capacitive? I thought they were actually physical. They're just sort of on one.
Oh,
of
they
the...
are physical, aren't they? But they're sort of super narrow or something. Or
Yeah,
I don't know.
they're like hidden into one of the
Yeah.
slots. Or
I'm not into
something
them. I
like
want a giant button to eject and to start.
that. Oh, then I've got the console for you. It's called the X-Bone.
Well, there you go.
With the big X to push.
Yeah. Well, there you
And
go.
leave fingerprints all over.
It's boring looking and functional. Perfect.
It's kind of. I suppose you could say the Series X is kind of that as well, isn't it? Because it's literally just a box with the X
sure.
on it.
I'm into that design.
Yeah.
The Series X, yeah, smaller and more powerful and just a box.
Just a box. Embrace plastic.
And like the Switch, like it doesn't, it's a handheld console, so there's no, it's all designed for form for function, right? It's basically a controller, so you can't really argue about the shape of the box because it's basically a controller.
But then Nintendo's consoles haven't really been showy apart from the 3DS, have they? Like, it's, since the GameCube, they've not really gone down that path.
Not since the GameCube. So that's on trend. So everything's boring now, and that's fine. It's not something that you hold or like move around or anything. Like all the Apple products and stuff are sort of tactile because you like physically move them, hold them and move them around and stuff. And the only thing that's there, is the controller, and that's the thing to focus on, I think, in my mind. Anyway,
it's just not got to be ugly. Is the trick, right? It can be anything, just as long as it's not ugly.
Flying V.
The flying V.
With Go Faster stripes, very important.
PS4 Pro kind of has that, doesn't it? Well, PS4 in general has that. It's one Go Faster stripe, horizontal. Is it a Go Slower stripe when it's horizontal?
I don't know. Maybe.
And not across the entire length of the thing. If they would Go Faster stripes, it's like I'd want them to be like a vertical strip right down the center of it.
Yeah, Viper stripes.
Yeah.
They just put Viper stripes on everything. That's 90s cool.
So get hyped for that. Don't know exactly what we'll see from there. Presumably games. 2 days later, we get the PC gaming show, which hasn't exactly been a how should we describe this? Hasn't exactly been the most newsworthy of press conferences in E3, but it is sometimes nice to have a focus on the more strategic and games that you would play with a mouse and keyboard, I suppose, tend to turn up there. And Warframe turns up there every year, and maybe some sort of slight, the India stuff. Is that where Satisfactory turned up first?
Yeah, I think. I get confused about that one and like stuff that keeps getting shown at the Game Awards, like Kerbal Space Program and whatnot.
Right. Yeah. So there might be a factory game for Zach there.
Well, they've got to release this one first.
In fact, I'll place a bet. There's probably a new there's a new factory game for Zach shown at this thing.
I don't know. I feel like they might have expended all their factory games.
You reckon?
Because none of them have actually come out yet.
That means we'll see them. I suppose it needs to be an announcement. It needs to be an announcement of a new factory game.
I mean, they could show Satisfactory again if they want to be like on the run up to actual release and be like, look at all the cool shit we did over this last year.
I bet that might. Yeah, that seems like a safe bet as well. Actually, that will probably happen.
But who knows when their actual release date will be?
Soon.
Probably not.
A few days after that, we get CD Projekt Red, presumably doing even more cyberpunk stuff.
Trying to build that hype even further.
They're calling it the Night City Wire. Yep.
Okay. Is Wire...
And then we've got...
Yeah, okay. I guess we'll find out.
And then we've got something that I think everyone can safely skip, which is EA Play. which is happening on June the 12th.
Unless you want to laugh at the failure.
I mean,
That's the only reason to watch an EA press conference.
Are they gonna have a FIFA game where no games are played or there's no crowds in the stadium?
They'll go full on like FIFA Street. This is like no actual football happening, so now it's all street.
2 meter apart football.
There's potential at this one because EA. Well, we don't know what they're working on, honestly, right now.
Apart from the sports games, you mean?
Yeah, I mean, apart from the sports game, outside of sports and Anthem 2, or
Anthem,
2.0, or
try and fix Anthem.
Yeah, let's do Anthem again. Aside from that, we actually have absolutely no idea. I don't think what EA are actually working on right now. Like anything, like what are Respawn doing right now? Like,
well, Respawn aren't working on Titanfall 3, as they said.
Yeah.
Well, I did hear that the Jedi Fallen Order is meant to be the start of the franchise. So
yeah,
they're probably working on a sequel to that.
Almost certainly.
No, I say franchise. You know what I mean.
There was meant
Series.
to be another Dragon Age, right? That got kind of
Yeah.
half delayed and half cancelled with Andromeda and Anthem fighting around.
There is in theory another.
Who's making Baldur's Gate? Is that not BioWare? No.
No,
I'm sorry.
It's not BioWare.
They made the original Baldur's Gate, didn't they? Or Baldur's Gate, yeah. Didn't they? Am I confused? I'm pretty sure they went Baldur's Gate, KOTOR, Mass Effect.
Yeah, I don't know.
I never Winter Nights.
I don't think it's anything to do with BioWare.
Right.
The new Baldur's Gate. But I think it might have some of the original team, but it's just not.
Right, and they've left.
Yeah.
Left BioWare. Yeah, well, I wouldn't blame them.
The
I mean, the founders left BioWare, so.
I tell you what, EA, if you were talking, I mean, it's not possible for them to have pivoted this fast. Well, no, I guess it is EA, but if EA wanted to be making a lot of money at the current time, Sims 5.
Well, yeah.
Right.
Not that they've ever stopped releasing DLC for Sims 4, so I guess they are still making that money anyway.
Sims 4, yeah, Sims 4 is, although you don't hear much about it, it's still super lucrative.
Oh yeah,
like crazy lucrative, really. Like those.
There's still like a certain class of, people that only play The Sims, right?
Yep, absolutely. It makes bills.
Sims 5.
Yeah. It might be time. It has been a really long time since Sims 4.
I don't think has it though, because it's like you remember like they showed it at E3 where it's like laugh at death and all that stuff.
Sure. Well, I saw
that
it at
wasn't
EGX
that many
one year.
Years ago, I guess. I mean, it was
Yeah,
some
no,
years ago.
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, because I remember seeing it, them doing the character creator and stuff like that at EGX one year.
Yeah.
Before it came out.
Probably only seems long. It probably only seems longer because I think it was a much shorter gap between 3 and 4, right? Because 3 just didn't really stick for some reason.
No, Sims 3 wasn't nearly as popular for some reason. But yeah. Or maybe it was, and we just didn't hear about it again. And they were just like, whatever. Technology's moved on. We can fix our mistakes easier. Whereas
we can sell DLC easier. We've suddenly got access to an online platform for selling digital products.
Oh yeah, Origin might have happened.
We don't have to do bullshit about you can only install Spore 3 times. Classic.
We're probably going to hear from there must be a Need for Speed announcement, right?
I guess
there's still one of those every year.
Whatever the fuck Criterion is doing.
Yeah. But then the last one wasn't Criterion, was it? It was Ghost Games.
No, because Criterion were meant to be working on that other mystery vehicle driving game that never actually happened.
No, that's pretty much been confirmed that's been canned, whatever that was.
Yeah.
whatever it'll be running on the Frostbite engine.
They could just announce a new Burnout, couldn't they? I mean, that could happen.
It could happen.
It's not
It'd
impossible.
be really interesting if it did. And please don't make Paradise 2.
Well, I mean, they can make Paradise 2, just make it better than Paradise. Then we might like it.
What the hell happened with that
Burnout
game?
3.5.
People really seem to like that game, and I've tried it multiple times, and I just can't get into it.
It's not
Burnout
for
3.
me.
I don't know why.
It's got. I think there are certain elements of it that are nice. Like I think certain people got behind the whole. It's nice to be able to the city is well designed enough in that there are viable routes here and there, and there's usually something to find there. There's usually a billboard to smash on pretty much every route, so there's a reason to explore. But the burnouty bits of it didn't really click with me. I didn't like the fact that every race pretty much ends up being the same because you take the same routes. The end of every race is always the same because it has to end in a certain number of places. Yeah. And it's which helps with familiarity for sure. But
like that concept of point to point races or whatever, that was fine in Midtown Madness, but didn't quite work in Burnout.
But was it fine in Midtown Madness? Because you always ended up taking the same routes in that as well, really.
Yeah,
right. Yeah,
point to point just generally has that problem. There's a good route, and once you've found that route, you take it pretty much all the time. And the Burnout Paradise had the slight problem where it's actually most of the shortcuts or what you thought were a shortcut would actually just go way past where you wanted to go. They'll be like, "Oh, I'm going to take this other route because it looks like it's going to be a direct line to where I need to go." Oh no, I've sailed way. This is just gone for half the map. I can't. There's no way out of it. There's only an entrance at either. Right now, I know that. I know not to ever take that again. Yeah. There were ways you could get on the train tracks, and they were pretty much completely pointless during actual races, but you could get there. And it's but the worst thing was discovering it during a race. And you're like, oh, for the love of... And I think when it first came out, they didn't give you the ability to restart races. So if you cocked up a race, you could exit out of it, but you'd be left exactly where you were. You'd have to drive back to the start of the race if you wanted to do that one again. Or pick a different one. And yeah, I don't know.
I was just wondering who made Midtown Madness.
Microsoft.
Yeah, but it was Angel Studios, and I'm just looking up who were Angel Studios, and they became Rockstar San Diego and made Red Dead Redemption.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
that's a story.
That's quite a story.
So is that the story from Midtown 1 all the way through the weird 3 one?
Yeah. Let's see, Angel Studios. Yeah, they made Midtown Madness 3. Oh, yeah. Oh, did they? Sorry, struggling with the Wikipedia here. Anyway, yeah. No, they made Midtown Madness 2. I don't know if they did Midtown Madness 3. That must have been somebody else. That was a weird one, wasn't it?
3 was the more. There was the definite. When they tried to consolize it for Xbox.
Oh, Midtown Madness 3 was made by DICE. Lol.
Wow. Okay, that's cool. Back when DICE made something else other than Battlefield.
That's weird. Anyway.
What else we got? Day of the Devs then happens 10 days after EA Play on June 22nd, which is this happens every year anyway, kind of thing. But it feels like they're making a slightly bigger deal of it this time, and it's effectively Double Fine and friends, and other studios getting together to do some announcements.
Cool.
Sega have said they're also doing a thing around then called the New Game Plus event. Sega don't normally do events like this, so
weird.
Let's see what happens here. I mean, Sega publish quite a lot of stuff, but a lot of their stuff doesn't make it over here, as it turns out. They publish an awful lot of Japanese-only stuff still, like anime games, basically. So it'll be interesting to see what they have for us. Maybe this is part of the Sonic announcements that they said there'd be way more of than there has been. And then Ubisoft do a thing again sometime later on July 12th called the Ubisoft Forward event. And this is absolutely expected to be their replacement of the E3 thing. So expect a dancing panda in some kind of Just Dance ad. Maybe some laser tag. And that's the last of the hard dates we've got. We know Xbox are going to carry on with their 2020 thing, which means we will see another quote unquote gameplay reveal session in June. But the one everyone's looking forward to is in July, because that's when the first party titles will be talked about. And Microsoft have been upfront with that and saying that we're not talking Halo or Forza or anything like that, or from any of our acquired studios until July. So we're going to get another third party thing in June.
Okay. Again, yeah. Okay.
Still to be defined. Devolver Digital have said they're definitely going to do something, because they have done for the last 2 or 3 years now. So they will have a little weird parody show. But both Square Enix and Warner Brothers are still to say anything about what their plans are. Warner Brothers, that's not too surprising. They don't really do anything of their own. They normally piggyback on someone else's show. But Square have had a tendency in recent years to do something themselves.
I guess they've got out their big game, right?
Yeah. They talked about a few other games last year. There's a couple of Platinum projects, I think, that Platinum and Square are working on that we haven't seen much of. Was one of them like Babylon or something like that? Something like that. There's some stuff from previous years, basically, that hasn't turned up anywhere. So we'll probably expect to see some more of that. There's that Nier Reincarnation project that's happening right now, which is a remaster of the original Niers.
All right. I didn't even realize that was a series.
There's only been two. There's 2/3 games in the series. It's a weird one. So there was an original Nier, and Nier Automata, however you want to say it, was the one that sort of did a lot better and got a lot more attention. But there was a sort of was it PS2 era, or maybe early PS3 era Nier game,
right?
And it was a weird one because the Japanese actually got 2 different versions of the same game that were sort of the same game, but they did sort of like a Pokemon Red Blue thing where like they followed. You actually got a different character depending on which game you bought, and it followed a different storyline, and it was a weird thing for the time. So they're doing a re-release effectively of that thing called Reincarnation, and I haven't followed it closely enough to know if it's a super close remake of the original, or if they're using what they learned in terms of storytelling and maybe gameplay from Automata. I have no idea what they're doing with it, but yeah, they're doing that. Maybe they'll talk about that some more.
And we will listen. Or not, as the case may be.
So basically everything's spread out. It's not like you'll get a hot E3 week
just
this year.
Smeared it out. What are we going to do for our reportage? I guess we'll have to just do it in the news.
Yeah, it'll just be a regular ass podcast.
Can't
have an E3 special.
Yeah, weird. first time. What else? I did watch there was a state of play though for The Last of Us Part 2.
Right, yeah, I haven't seen this.
Yeah, last week. Yeah, so it was just an introduction to the game again, just going over everything, and then just to get people hyped for release. But then there was a lengthy kind of gameplay section without commentary at the end. But they were just sort of showing off some of the environments and stuff at first, and it's like it does look really cool. Like the, I mean, we've seen glimpses of it before, but like evidently she goes from wherever it is, Colorado, towards like Seattle, like the Pacific Northwest, and Seattle itself is all ruined, is the ruined city or whatever for this game. But it does look like pretty, obviously bigger scale environment wise, like with literally riding around the city on a horse, rather than because I kind of, from when I saw the horse stuff before for Last of Us Part 2, I'm like, okay, this is clearly like a kind of a corridor scripted sequence, or at least that's the way it looks. But I think actually it looks like you're going to be able to move around quite large environments including with a horse and stuff.
Interesting. I wonder. I don't know how I feel about that from a Naughty Dog game. You know what I mean? I know they've toyed with like open worldy stuff slightly, with a hint of it in Uncharted, and more of a hint of it in the little Uncharted 4. Was it not Uncharted 4, but the one they did afterwards?
Yeah. I guess it is similar to. Well, I don't know. They feel a bit more natural than those. Although obviously they looked really good. I didn't play the spin-off Uncharted with the I can't remember the names of the characters.
Was it Nadia and is it Nadia? Oh, I can't even remember.
Yeah, I think that's her name. And the dark haired lady as well. But
Chloe, that's it.
Chloe, that's right. Yeah, well remembered. Yeah. So that, I don't know. They don't look massive, but they look like that. But they look kind of more natural. But I guess the whole game is more kind of naturalistic, isn't it? And less exotic than like Uncharted. So they're really going for that look. And obviously, really, it's quite a long time after, the apocalypse now. So obviously, Ellie's grown up, but also like all the vegetation has completely taken over and grown up now, in a way that it wasn't in like so much in the original game. Anyway, the thing everyone's talking about from this is like in the gameplay sequence, she like stealths up. She's like swimming around and she stealths up behind this girl, and everyone's like, why hasn't this girl turned around? She's making tons of noise, and it's because she's playing a PS Vita and she's got headphones in, and she like interrogates her, but you can hear that it's Hotline Miami, like on the coming through the headphones, which is really weird. And then she like, and you're like, oh, that's a weird reference. That's quite funny. And then she like brutally stabs her in the throat. It's horrible. Oh. So yeah. Although arguably like the violence in Hotline Miami is pretty bad, but yeah. It's a cool sequence.
All the things you'd find in the apocalypse, she found a Vita.
A Vita, I know.
And a Vita that still had a functioning battery at this point. That hadn't exploded.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it would have been like, how long are we talking? Like a good 20, 30 years probably at this point after things.
Well, Ellie is 19, right? In this game, I think.
More like 10.
Okay. So maybe not 30 years.
Yeah.
But it had been a long time in the first game, hadn't it? It had been a reasonable amount.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So yeah, and like it does look really good, but it just looks brutal. The animations are just crazy, and I still got the same concern about, they keep showing the dogs, and that makes the stealth complicated because they can smell you around corners and stuff. And it's like, how is that not just going to be really frustrating? I don't know.
Really annoying. It's like the dog's going to come around the corner, and you're going to look to the other side, and you'll be like, oh, there's a dude there. Well, this is going to go bad.
Well, yep, I'm screwed here. There's going to be quite a few of those situations, unless they figure out a way out of it. But that kind of thing happened in the original game, didn't it? Not quite,
it happened a fair amount with like clicker fights and things like that, and be like, right, okay, I'm boned here.
I'm boned.
Which is the thing I hate about stealth. when there isn't a solution.
Well, that's it. Let's see if, like, gameplay wise, they've come up with more kind of solutions and more like options, basically. Because it looks like there's, she's quite agile and she's got quite a few more options.
Throw some ham past the dog.
Yeah. Oh, there's got to be something.
I'm carrying ham bombs. I'm all right.
So, and I heard that like the story leaks haven't affected the pre-orders or anything, which is, and not that they would. But,
Molotov cocktail.
Yep, there's Molotov cocktail in that demo as well.
But the cocktail's got ham in it.
With a cocktail, ham cocktail. Yeah. So the last hurrah for this generation, I guess.
Well, yeah, that and Tsushima.
Which I was less impressed by its like state of play, but there you go.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we said that last time, but there's.
I think now I'm less hyped for Tsushima and more hyped for Last of Us than I was.
Oh, interesting.
For this stuff. Yeah.
Last of Us for sure is going to get like a PS5 version, isn't it? 'Cause it's too close.
Well, apparently there's a rule coming in that they have to work on PS5. I think.
Well, that makes sense, like the back compat rule, but like whether they'll do like a full-on PS5 version of it.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be shitty of them to do like a HD version or whatever. Not that it's, you know what I mean, like too soon.
Well, they sort of did that because 3 was, Last of Us was was pretty close to the end of the PS3 life cycle.
Yeah,
and then they did not long after PS4 came out. They did Last of Us Remastered.
That's true. Well, I wouldn't know. Well, we'll see.
It depends what they're going for. Like, because Last of Us Remastered basically wasn't too much of a lift, right? They I think it had a slight resolution bump and 60 frames per second, and that was really all that was.
Because the funny thing now is that, like, obviously they're much more powerful than new machines. They always are. But it seems like all this memory stuff and everything they're working on, their whole concept is that they allow you to make games in a different, new way, and they remove those restrictions. So if you port a game that is working within those restrictions, and you just like try and all you're going to do is like up the frame rate and grab, but you're not going to be able to, take advantage of that stuff. Because you'd have to start again.
Xbox might face, right? Games on PS5 currently have the potential to actually be fundamentally different from something that couldn't, there's the potential for games to be made on PS5 that couldn't be possible on any other platform right now.
Yeah,
whereas Xbox isn't going to be in that position because they've embraced, hey, we're going to, at least first party, Xbox is saying like anything they make is going to work on the bone for a while.
Ah, okay. So then they really are restricted.
Yeah, Microsoft are saying, "Hey, we're not just being back compat; we're being forward compat for a while."
Right. Okay. So Halo Infinite on the Xbox
Infinite's going to come out on the bone. Yeah.
Oh. I'm not sure about that. Not that but that means it has to run on the original Xbox One.
It has to run on the bone, yeah.
Not the Xbox One X.
Not just the X, yeah.
Oh dear, I'm not sure about that. Anyway,
I mean, it's
purely because of the restrictions.
It's a theoretically good decision for consumers, and it also allows them to do their fancy, like, oh hey, if you buy this game, it's just going to work on all of the platforms. It's like, doesn't matter if you get the disc copy, doesn't matter if you get the download copy. Shove your disc in, you'll have to download the game anyway, in modern terms. But like, it'll if you bought the bone version and eventually get
that's true,
Series X, you'll have the game on Series X.
I mean, that all of that is awesome, and it'll it's just you won't be able to, given that Halo Infinite we think is like quite grand in scope. Well, at least it looks like it from seeing the Warthog move along or whatever.
We have absolutely no idea.
Oh well, we'll see. Anyway, what other news I've got a little bit of music news, which is that the Tetris Effect OST is now on Spotify, which is pretty cool.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah,
that is good news.
It is good news, especially if you're working from home. Pop that on there.
Oh man, yeah.
Get some. So just a heads up.
Totally check that out.
And the other thing was, everyone's super excited about the beer shader in Half-Life Alyx.
But it is
Which-
pretty sweet.
It does look so cool. I wish I mean, everything about that makes you want to try it in VR, but I would like to shake a bottle of beer or a bottle of wine or in VR and see it fizz up.
That's a decent physics demo.
Yeah, really cool. Sound like there was just a programmer at Valve who was bored during lockdown and just decided to write that,
Which is amazing
patch that in.
in,
Yeah,
in
well,
itself, really.
well,
It's
they're
just like,
amazing people, aren't they?
I just did this. Enjoy.
I did see after Half-Life Alyx there was quite a lot of like Valve people coming out and talking in a way that they hadn't for years and years and years. Like there was like a bunch of the Half-Life 2 developers and game designers, I guess, did a commentary on a speed run of Half-Life 2, which I watched, which was really really
right.
cool. Yeah, I recommend that.
That popped up on my YouTube feed, but yeah, haven't watched it.
It was really cool. It's hilarious how they talk about like how much work had gone into, and they were like joking because they obviously had like internal jokes over stuff that like we'd never even thought about before, like the length of the speedboat section and stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Right,
like
yeah,
when you
that
go
part.
through Half-Life 2 again, you're like, oh yeah, I remember this bit was kind of bullshit or whatever.
It was quite long.
But they managed to make that helicopter one of the most vicious like baddies in annoying. It somehow had personality because it just kept following you for forever.
It's like, leave me alone.
Something about the way the gun wound up before it murdered you.
It is nice to have a bit of warning. Thanks, helicopter.
Helicopter. And I hear they're making a sequel to the Sonic the Hedgehog movie.
Yeah, I was about to say there's some vague other news. It's like, of course they were going to make another Sonic. They left the last one with some sequel bait. Let's put it that way. And the first one didn't do too badly for itself at the box office somehow. I mean, it's fine. It's a fine movie. It's not a great movie, but it's fine. And it's also not Sonic enough. But maybe it will be more Sonic this time? No, of course not. It will be another road trip across America with a cop.
I think some people just have a lot of nostalgia for Jim Carrey playing that kind of part.
I mean, there's an element of that, sure.
And he's doing his best.
He's doing his best with a. I think he's fighting the script.
Yeah,
quite
of course,
a bit during that thing. It does feel like he's not. I mean, that's one of the core problems with the film, and completely actually, it's like I think the elements of it kind of fight its own plot a little bit.
Mm.
It doesn't make it doesn't make a huge amount of sense. It doesn't fit with Sonic all that well. It breaks its own rules quite a few times as well. It's like, now I can climb buildings. Now I can't. Is this a flashback? It was a flashback. Can I only climb buildings in a flashback? Oh, I'm not sure.
Well, I haven't seen it, so
it's
and I
got
probably
problems.
won't.
There's a planet full of mushrooms.
Well,
Spoiler alert.
I mean, if you eat enough mushrooms, you might start to see Sonic.
That's probably true. No, you'd probably see Sonic
Probably.
get cursed.
You'd probably see the Sonic from before they fixed his teeth and his eyes and everything.
Oh man, can you imagine? It's like we've got this whole thing about release the Snyder cut.
Is that
yeah. actually happening?
I know.
Like, can we have released the original Sonic?
Like, is the meow line in the movie?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that happens. It's not just great, man.
I love that so much. That's such a great theme. Might have to watch it just for that. Anyway.
I mean, that is potentially the best bit of the whole film. I'm not gonna lie.
Right, that's news.
Oh, and BlizzCon's been cancelled.
And BlizzCon's been cancelled.
Just in case you didn't expect it.
So they can't have a giant Hong Kong protest or whatever they're doing.
Yeah, they can't have a disaster this year unless Overwatch 2 comes out and it's bad. Which would be hard because it's Overwatch 1.
It's not going to be bad. Spoilers. Cool. It is time for What Have You Been Playing? I'm going to pick on Zach because he doesn't seem to be talking very much. Hello.
Yes, well, there's not much to talk about in this section either, really.
Hooray.
Because we can always start with things I haven't been playing, because I kind of referenced it earlier, but Satisfactory didn't make it out in May, which was their theoretical release date. But they have now at least given a date which is actually a number now, so it's more likely to happen for the 8th. So that's the next podcast thing, I guess. And then
it's coming out, but it's still in early access. Is that right? Yeah, it's coming out on Steam, but it's in early access. If you don't care about Epic Store, you could have had it for a year.
And then in the middle phase of things that I haven't been playing that much, Terraria didn't really stick very much between everyone on my Steam list.
Oh, really?
They were in it a lot right at the start, but then everyone fell off quite quickly. So haven't really played that much of it. I did eventually
just solo it some more. Or...
Well, I did eventually decide to attempt to get into an expert world with someone, see how that went. Which, I feel like the balance of that game is like awkward because it's like I like the idea of the expert mode bosses being, they have new attacks and shit. That's obviously good. So, but then the real thing that expert mode changes is just everything does tons more damage, and it's just like that's not really that fun. But then that's kind of what Terraria is at like high levels, where it's just like you're not meant to take damage. You're meant to constantly avoid. That's why you have like all the jet boots and wings and all those other and like grappling hooks and all the maneuverability stuff. It's like the real game of it is like you're meant to be dodging all the attacks, but it's just like it's a very technical thing to pull it off well enough to manage those like super high levels of damage in the harder difficulties. Because even like when they made it so that the healing potions are on like a minute cooldown, because they originally the healing potions were just on like a normal kind of cooldown, but then they were like, oh, we don't want it to be like Diablo or whatever, where you're just constantly mashing health potions. So they put them on like a whole minute cooldown, which basically means you get like one health potion a fight. In for bosses, so it's just like it's really harsh in that way. It really is about like you have to avoid taking damage as much as possible, and also I guess the sort of you could argue it's sort of a clever way of integrating the like Minecrafty building the world part, that like you kind of want to build boss arenas with like health stations and like little statues and things that buff you spread around the arena, so that while you're fighting you just get passive buffs.
Well, so you can goad the boss to you.
Well, a lot of the bosses when you first fight them, you have to fight them like where you spawn them from. But even then, you can just dig a big hole if you're underground and just put some platforms in it and make a fight room.
See, okay, I didn't realize you spawned them in. I thought you sort of a lot of the bosses, all the bigger things, you kind of stumbled upon them.
No, they're mostly like triggered in some way. They're not really. There's not really any like that you just walk to a place and it just happens to you. I mean, there are a couple that are like. There's like the well, I guess the giant eyeball thing, the first boss, that technically just comes to you after you've done a certain amount of things. It's like if you've got your health up to like 200 health points, then it has a chance to spawn during the night, and you get like a small amount of warning because it says a little message about it coming. And then there's a few other ones like that, like when it's raining slime, if you kill enough of the slimes, then the slime king spawns. And then like the sort of invasion type events like the goblin invasion and the pirate invasion, they tend to just give you a warning where it's like an invasion is coming. Get ready. But then, of course, that's when you have your like home base fight arena.
Sure, yeah. It's like, well, let's make sure we fight everything here, where we've got everything all kitted out and sorted.
But of course, my trouble again, it's a classic problem I have with playing these kind of games in multiplayer, just like with Factorio or whatever. It's just like, I want a nice, neat fight arena, but it's just like, no, we'll just chuck a bunch of platforms all over the place, just make a big wiggly line of platforms through midair that aren't really attached to anything, or because it doesn't matter. But I like my fight arenas nicely designed, but that's too much effort.
You prefer some predictable platform placement.
Well, I mean, that can help in some cases. Like in the early game, it's like if you build the platforms the right number of blocks apart so you can like jump and not have to use your double jump to move between two platforms, that helps. Especially, well, you might not even have a double jump in theory, but probably you do. Because double jumps are super common now.
How big do these things have to be? Like these arenas, like
depends what sort of.
Does the boss tend to keep its distance from you, or do you need to be like being able to dance around it?
Well, a lot of them is about dodging, but it kind of depends on what boss it is. Like some of the bosses, like there's the giant Queen Bee that has really two types of attack. One where it just sort of hovers above you and shoots downwards, and one where it charges left to right. So you can sort of get away with that one being a more compact arena and like not as many vertical platforms. You don't need to move up and down nearly as much. So it kind of depends on what boss you're doing. That depends on the design of the arena you want to put it in. But generally speaking, just like a lot of parallel platforms that you can just hop up and down between easily is what you want.
Yeah, a bit me thought well, I suppose maybe you'd want like a staggered, like almost Smash Brothers Battlefield arrangement, but then I suppose you do want a little bit of space so you can fall all the way down when you need to.
Well, and you also want like a flat plane to run along with some of the bosses. Like when they're trailing behind you, you want to just be able to run straight for a while and shoot them.
And then jump over them, wait for them to turn around, then do it again in the other direction.
Yeah, pretty much.
So it could be quite big then.
Yeah, they can be. And I mean, there's literally one of the bosses is literally you have to do that because the boss is just like a giant death wall and it just keeps coming at you. You just have to build a huge long platform way across the span of the map, which fortunately there's like, well, this is the hell boss. So when you go down into hell, you basically, it's sort of like a long, wide, flat cave. So it's kind of pre-made to fight this boss in. So you just stick a platform across the center of it. So you have something to run on all the way across the map as the giant wall chases you and gets gradually faster. So yeah, we've made it up to that point in Expert, which is like the fourth boss, I guess. And they haven't been that different in Expert. They've all had like one new attack, and then obviously the large amount of more damage that they just do in general.
Well, at least they have something new.
Yeah, and new loot because there's Expert only loot, and I guess theoretically now there's Master only loot, but. Not going to get to that.
Well, that's kind of cool. Does that mean can loot from these games can be carried over into other games if you've got expert only stuff?
Yeah, because
you pull that into your normal character.
The characters are locked. The inventory, because your characters have like a personal inventory that is just like you can access it in any world, which is attached to like the piggy bank and the safe rather than just like regular chests. So the regular chests just stay in the world, but anything you put in the piggy bank is attached to the actual character. So if you take that to a different world, you still have access to that stuff. Well, I think I didn't actually read the exact patch notes, but there's items in Expert and Master that give you like extra accessory slots. So when we defeated the giant death wall, it drops a thing that gives you an extra accessory slot. And I think that's the only thing that doesn't stick if you go to a different grade of world. Like if you go from an expert world down to a normal world, you don't get to keep that extra inventory slot while you're there. Accessory slot, rather. Maybe. I think that's what the patch note said anyway. So yeah, we didn't really play all that much of that. Just some. I guess I played some more Enter the Gungeon. Well, I mainly did that because I finally got my Twitch stream working again. I mean, I say I finally got it working again. The problem I had previously was last time I tried to stream something, Twitch was all like, we need two-factor authentication to show you your stream key, which, that makes sense. Because that's kind of the important thing to stream to your channel. You need the stream key, and you wouldn't want anyone else having that. So I was like, well, they hadn't asked for that before because, probably this didn't exist before, I guess, last time I streamed. But I was like, oh, well, okay, I'll, enter a mobile phone number and get a two-factor thing, get a text message. But, I put my number in and it seemed to accept it, but it never actually sent a message. So it's like, well, fuck, I guess I just can't use this any longer. But now, this last time, when I was like, well, let's see if I can get this working again, because the thought came to me to try and stream, mainly because I'd been playing Gungeon anyway. I was like, this is a streamable game. Maybe I'll try and get Twitch working again. So I started it up, and it didn't two-factor me this time. It was just like, yeah, here you go.
Oh, weird.
So I don't know what that was about.
That is HSZeg on Twitch.
Yep, it sure is. So I ran through Gungeon a few more times. Still haven't managed to beat the paradox or anything. It's just... It was weird. The runs that I streamed, I played 2 paradox runs where I didn't make it through the first loop, the first of the 2 loops. And then I was like, well, I don't think I've got enough time to do a whole other paradox run. I'll just do a regular run. And that run, I did make it through to the last boss. And I was like, well, this was a great run. And I made the last boss well easy. But it doesn't fucking matter because this wasn't a paradox run. No progress was made. Give me those guns on one of those 2 other runs when I was playing the paradox. So yeah.
Oh dear.
There's that. Still, one day maybe I'll finish that more than I have. I got 1 more achievement.
No.
And then I guess I recently played a little bit more Oxygen Not Included because someone else was playing it, and that's what I need. I need someone else to be playing it to discuss designs and shit.
I see.
Even if
some of the bounce ideas off, it's the classic co-worker thing.
Yeah, even if I've played it for way longer than them, so my stuff is way more complicated in general. It's still just I can help them with their problems, and that will help me think about my problems. So yeah, I played a bit of that. I continued the save that I'd been working on for a long time before, where basically it's a save where I'm quite close to the end. Well, it's I've got to the point in that save where I could end it at any time, essentially. All I'd have to do is build the larger rocket that I'd need and then just launch it and then I'd win. It's I already have all the infrastructure to fuel the rocket and all, and I have the materials to build the rocket. I could just do it and end it. But there's no real end to that game anyway, so it's there's not really much point in in doing that one thing that triggers the achievement for ending the game. Especially because I've already got that achievement from that other time I did it. So I started a new map again. Well, mainly because the person I was talking to was playing on the ice map, and I had played on the ice map before, but I think I decided that map was too easy because obviously it's a game about heat management, and on a really cold map that kind of makes it well easy. You just have all this coldness to dump heat into. But so then I thought, well, how can I make this cold map more interesting? So I basically made the coldest map, where it's you have the ice planet, you have frozen core, so you have ice in the core instead of magma. and also large glaciers where you just get even more huge chunks of ice chucked randomly around the map. So it's like, this is the coldest map you could possibly have, just ice and more ice, which does make it, slightly more difficult. Where you're just like, how can I make any heat at all?
Yeah, got the opposite problem finally.
Yeah, because initially you need to insulate your base and then conserve a little bit of heat just to be able to grow plants, which is like, that's not too difficult because you can just build if you build a bunch of batteries, because the batteries leak energy over time, they just make heat. So you can just have batteries as kind of mini radiators in the early game, which is kind of nice. So that will keep your plants alive. But then it's then once you start using up your initial supply of unfrozen water, and you're everywhere else on the map is just ice. Now you're I need quite a lot of heat to melt all this water that I'm going to need. So then you actually start having problems. My current solution is that I happen to find a gold volcano quite near my starting area. So I'm like, oh, sweet. That's quite a lot of heat because it erupts molten gold.
Okay, I was about to say, is the volcano just golden with magma, or is it? Yeah, or is it actually a gold volcano?
Gold volcano, it doesn't put out that much heat in terms of volcanoes because gold has quite a low heat capacity. So even though it is technically molten gold, it cools down real fast. So I've just basically put a pool of water on the gold volcano, so the molten gold falls into the water and instantly turns back into solid gold, basically, and heats the water up gradually. But it's not that hot. It's already erupted a few times and the water only got to 40 degrees. So I was like, I could use that to keep my base warm, I guess, but that's not going to be a long-term solution to melting ice. But I did specifically choose this map, so theoretically somewhere there is an actual volcano, if I can find it. And that's significantly more heat than a gold volcano.
Right. Proper magma.
Yeah. But even then, I'm not sure. My problem that I've been having with this concept of that I need to melt ice is I'm not really sure what the most efficient way to melt ice actually is. Because if you just take a big hunk of ice, 1,000 kilograms of ice, and chuck it in a pool of water, the actual rate of heat transfer between a chunk of ice and the water is actually not very fast. So it takes quite a long time for it to actually melt. So I'm not sure how I could do it better. I was thinking maybe I could use you can have the conveyor rails that transport solid materials, and when the materials travel on the rails, they get broken down into 20 kilogram chunks. So I'm maybe I can just basically have a rail that just showers tons of little 20 kilogram chunks of ice onto a hot bit of metal or something. So they might melt faster.
Sprinkler.
Yeah, maybe that might work. But then again, it's still a matter of getting a lot of heat into those bits of metal. You've got to work out where that heat's going to come from.
You might find they're at home on the rails, though.
Yeah. Fairly at home.
Fairly at home.
Apart from when they melt on the rails, and then you're going to have problems.
What happens then?
Well, the water falls off the rail, obviously, because it's not solid any longer.
Right.
And then you've got water all over your damn place. And then everyone gets hypothermia from standing in this cold ass water.
You should have rail pipes. You make a pipe for your rail.
Well, the thing is, you could build the rail behind walls, because it effectively is like a pipe essentially. It builds in the background. But then if you build it inside a wall, if something melts on it, it will teleport sideways out of the wall essentially.
Leaks through the wall.
Yeah.
Like a badly fitting shower.
Which, then you can actually kind of exploit that. If you, instead of having the bits of ice drop onto a hot chunk of metal, you could instead have the rail with the ice on it run behind the hot chunk of metal and just have the ice melt while it's behind that, which might increase the heat transfer quite a lot, but is probably a lot more messy to deal with. And less sort of controllable rather than turning on and off the rain of small chunks of ice, I suspect. So yeah, we'll see
Just
about
make
that.
sure you don't have anyone underneath them.
Man, that would be really. That's like the Dwarf Fortress problem of like. Thank God you can't be killed by collision damage. Because shit drops. Well, because in most of the bases in Oxygen Not Included, you're very likely to have like a very long ladder going up the middle of your base, where people carrying stuff will occasionally drop stuff down the ladder shaft, which would be real bad if you could get hit by them. But that's like the Dwarf Fortress problem of if you build vertical staircases. It's one of those things where it's like Dwarf Fortress logic, where if you build a really long vertical staircase, it's perfectly fine, and you can even like drop items and they stay on whatever floor you're on. But for some reason, if a dwarf or a creature becomes unconscious on a staircase, they just fall straight to the bottom and inevitably die from impact damage. So building long vertical staircases in Dwarf Fortress is kind of dangerous. But just don't let people go unconscious
whilst climbing stairs.
Well, you can get unconscious in Dwarf Fortress for various reasons.
Okay.
Not just sleepiness.
That's just how this works. The dwarves just fall asleep where they stand.
I mean, that's something that can happen in Oxygen Not Included. Is one of the bad traits that they can have is narcoleptic, where they'll just fall asleep randomly. But they can totally fall asleep like on a ladder. They'll just like hang off the ladder and be asleep. And it's totally
Nice.
fine.
Like a sloth.
Yeah.
Sloth.
You only have to worry about them falling asleep in like a pit of lava or whatever. If they're wearing a exosuit and they decide that now's the time to fall asleep, and then the oxygen runs out.
Sloth or a dwarf?
A dwarf and sloth.
And I think that's more or less it. We didn't get back to scrap mechanic, and there's also there's a beta of a game that I've only just installed and haven't got to play yet, so that will be possibly for next podcast if I get around to playing that some more.
Not revealing its nature.
Well, I can reveal its nature. It's another block building vehicle making kind of game.
Of course it is.
Yep. Actually, there's a lot of them at the moment. But yeah, hopefully on the 8th, satisfactory, and then that will be what will be the next podcast about.
Woo. And we can be satisfied with more factory content.
Yep, definitely.
Satisfactorized. Factoring? Let's get out of that factory. And on to Rob, what you've been playing. Facts.
I'm well satsed with it. Nothing really new from me this week. Just a continuation of what I was doing last time. I think I've got into Valorant like quite a bit. I quite enjoy it. I've been playing it I played it a bit on my own, without Kips in the group and stuff like that.
It seemed to come out of nowhere. This thing, did it? I don't know.
Well, it hasn't. It hasn't. I mean, like it's Riot Games, and so it was always going to have a little bit of
sure.
A little bit of impact because what else have Riot really put out yet other than League of Legends and League of Legends related stuff.
Well, that was the point, wasn't it? Because it was one of their like, we're going to make a whole bunch of games that are like in the League universe, but just are different.
Except this one isn't. This one isn't Runeterra. This one isn't League related.
It's League adjacent, at least.
I mean, the style is, I suppose, some of the visual style you might say is similar to League, but it's none of the characters, and there are guns, which isn't really a very League-y thing.
It's Future League.
Maybe,
when they invent guns.
But I really quite enjoy how that plays. It's hard to describe. I sort of tried to explain it last time, and that it's like it's super cribbing from Counter-Strike, but there is definitely something to it. I think they've managed to get it right, but not overly stepping onto Counter-Strike's ground. Just because the way the guns feel is different. The flow of the rounds does somehow feel different from Counter-Strike, like the way you move about and the way you the team more the way you strategize or don't is more likely, to be honest, in Valorant at the moment. But it's I think it's a good time. I quite enjoyed myself with it. It helps that I think I'm getting better at just how the gunplay works in both that and Counter-Strike at the moment. I'm having
really
a higher percentage of good rounds now. I'm still terrible in the grand scheme of things, but I'm slowly improving, and it's a nice feeling when you're suddenly having better rounds and you're like, I'm actually top of the team on the CS game. It's like, how did that happen? It shouldn't happen. Is how that happens. It shouldn't happen.
And yet, you are murdering fools.
Super rarely it does. I can still have an utter shocker though. Like that still happens as well. It's peaks and troughs. I'm not great all the time, but you get that odd one round where everything comes together. And then you'll have that one game where absolutely nothing comes together. But I think, again, as I said last time, I think there's something about how Valorant plays where I question it less than I question Counter-Strike.
Yeah.
Like when it feels like I should have won a fight in Counter-Strike, it's kind of horrid. But I don't get that so much from Valorant. I get
feels
and
less
maybe
random or chance.
Yeah,
involved.
maybe it's little things like at the end of a round, you get. Counter-Strike, when you get killed, you get a little breakdown between you and that guy that killed you. In that it's like, he hit you twice and it did 112 damage because he hit you in the head. And you only did 12 damage to him because you hit him in the foot once, something like that. But you don't get that detail. You get 2 hits, 12 damage or something like that versus 2 hits and 114 damage. And that on its own can sometimes feel bad because you're looking at that going, okay, well, how on earth did I do so little damage? It's like I know he probably landed 2 body shots on me and I must have landed a leg shot or something like that, but it's a little unclear and sometimes that feels bad. And it only tells you between you and your attacker or you and the person that killed you. You only get that information for. So you might have been fighting some other guy and been shot by someone else. And you won't get that breakdown, and it's like, it's a bit annoying. You can go into the console and see a little more information if you want to pull up the text log, but it's not super well done, and it's frustrating. Whereas just that little bit of extra clarity from Valorant, where it gives you a full combat report, as in, you hit this guy for this much damage, and you did 3 body shots and 3 leg shots. And it happened at this time frame. And by the way, that grenade you threw, you totally hit someone with that. And it's
like Dwarf Fortress or something.
It really does give you a really decent breakdown of everything that happened. After the game, you can even go back and view a map of where the kills happened and stuff
that's
like that,
cool.
and be like, oh right, yeah. So clearly, I'm better in this position than I am over here. Maybe I should not.
That's really cool, isn't it?
And it's decent, but they're not complex additions. They're just these little things here and there that really add to it. I mean, I think it needs a production pass. There are definitely elements to the game that don't feel, I don't know, Overwatch level of polish. Let's go that way. There's a certain, it's a little lacking in the sort of content you might expect from a game like this. It's going free to play, so you'd think they would be flooding the store with a whole load of skins and a whole load of things you could potentially buy, but the beta didn't really have much of that, so there's not that to go around. And it's also hard to tell if there will be any kind of drop system for free players, or if there's any perks to being a free, if free players really get anything versus, or do you just buy everything? It's sometimes that's a little unclear at this point. And is there going to be enough of a draw to really, have stuff you want to grind to get? That's the as a player that's probably not going to spend a huge amount of money on a free play game,
No.
because I haven't spent a dime on Counter-Strike. But Rocket Parts still works for me somehow. Yeah, Rocket Parts is a good deal compared to most things. Yeah, I'm interested to see how that maybe works. Because I imagine there's an awful lot of Fortnite players that have never spent any money on it at all, and they're just happy, they're just content to play it. But
definitely, there must be loads.
yeah, and I'd like there to be some sort of draw. It's hard to know exactly what they're going to do with because they've got because it's unlike Counter-Strike, Valorant is a bit more hero shootery in that your character has abilities and stuff, and I talked about that last time as well. But I don't have every one of those characters unlocked, and I'm not sure it's hugely clear to me, or I haven't really paid attention if there's a path by which I can unlock everyone for free. Or if you get like in the beta, what happened is I got a couple of characters like pretty much straight off the bat. You get like a number of base characters. I think you get 5, and then you can unlock another 2 of your choice from the locked selection, leaving a couple that I couldn't get. But I don't know presumably if I paid money, I could have unlocked them, but I don't know if there's any way by which I could earn those other slots eventually. Apex has a similar model, but in Apex, you definitely have to buy characters. There comes a point where you can basically only unlock 1, maybe 2 in Apex after a little bit of play, and then the money dries up, so you can't get the currency anymore that you would need to buy those characters. And it's not clear to me, at least, how that's going to work in Valorant, or how much those characters are, or whatever. So that might be the thing that causes most people to drop some money on it, but it might well happen for me because I'm quite enjoying it. I think it's really good, and it's something that hint hint, I would quite like Zach to join us in playing. Although I've been trying to get him to play Counter-Strike with us for a while, and I think it would probably run fine on your PC as well because it's
probably
it's designed not to be like super next gen visuals. It's designed to be this is going to run on as many platforms as possible. In terms of its visuals, so I'm sure you'd have a decent time with it. I really like it. I'm excited for when it comes out for real in a couple of days to see what's changed. See if there's any surprises in store. They've already said there's one more character coming pretty soon, and probably another map, which will bring the total to only 4 right now. So it's going to be a kind of a soft launch, I think, rather than a hard launch. But hey, this thing's popular enough already. And I like at least 2 of the 3 maps that they've had. One of them I find a bit problematic, but 2 of them I really like. It's a good game. It's a good game.
Valorant.
Yeah, excited to play more of that. In a similar vein, I actually dipped back into Overwatch because it's been their anniversary event, which means, hey, you can get all the loot from all of the things that have happened so far. So, yeah, that drew me back. Get a few loot boxes, play a few games. Nothing really much more to say in that other than it's still Overwatch. It's still good fun. I actually had a reasonably good time playing I dipped into one of the modes I haven't really played very much because they had a 3v3 elimination mode, which I didn't really like when it was 3v3. And that is literally like it's Counter-Strike style. There's no real objective. You just have to eliminate the other team before you. But they've made a 6v6 version of that instead of 3v3, and I think that works a lot better for my play because it makes me being a support, I think, or I don't know. It feels like the roles still work. You can still support the other players. You could still be the tank and get up front and take damage and then retreat and get healed. And whereas in 3v3, I don't think that really sat very well or as well.
Right.
And that, yeah, it's it can be a complete walkover, or sometimes it can be a tense push and pull. It works okay, but it's still not, the main draw is obviously the regular game modes, which is still good. So Overwatch, yeah, been playing some of that. I finished the main story of Streets of Rage 4.
There you go. Okay, Streets of Rage. I mean,
and I'm still pretty positive on that. I think it's
So, in what sense did you finish what does that mean to finish the main story?
The main story is 12 stages long, and so you basically have to go through each stage in turn. But each stage is kind of separate from each other, so it's not like playing the originals where you had to basically do the whole game in one run. You can just focus on doing I need to work out how to get through this stage, and it's like if you game over, no worries, I'll pick up from that stage.
Okay.
When you move on to the next stage, it's like you're given a baseline starting thing. You'll get your 2 lives, your 3 lives,
right.
And you'll get full health, and you'll get 1 special, and so you always start from the same place on every stage, except for stages which have a special start, and there's a couple of them where you might be in a injured state. But that fits with how that stage starts, so that's fine. I don't think it necessarily goes crazy on its mechanics as you go through. Your move set doesn't change because it's a beat 'em up. It's a classic beat 'em up, and there's no shops or any RPG mechanics or anything like that. So you're stuck with what your character can do, and it's just up to you to get better, get good. And,
get good.
Yeah, I really did. It felt good because it did, in the sense that I feel like I was getting better when I played it, and having finished the story, and then you go back and do stage 1 again, and it's just like, oh right, yeah, I've come quite a long way from when I first started playing this, and it's a nice, it's a good feeling to know I've got better at this. That wasn't to say it was a total breeze. It's like I wasn't. I never used I never lowered the difficulty from, I think I'm playing on normal. So I never turned it down, and I never used any of the assists, because there's an assist system for story mode as well, where you can turn on certain... Assist system, yeah. You can turn on certain buffs.
Like a Forza or something.
Well, kind of, yeah. It's got certain buffs, like you won't take so much damage, or you'll do more damage, or certain environmental things, which is kind of neat for players that just want to get through it. But those come with penalties. Like you're probably not going to you can't set a high score if you're using assists, for instance, or so that's I really enjoyed it. The story is what it was. What it was. It's super basic, but what can you do with a beat 'em up, really?
Yeah, that's fine.
There's bad guys. We're going to go punch those bad guys. You punch those bad guys. There you go. If I had 2 gripes with the whole experience, there's a couple of spots where it feels like the game was clearly designed for you to not be playing it in solo.
Right.
And that's just because there are so many dudes about that it just becomes a little bit unmanageable on your own. And that's probably me. That's probably something I could improve at, how to deal with crowd control under certain circumstances.
But it feels like it's kind of meant for.
It feels like I wouldn't be getting quite so much of this aggro just on me, or I might be able to see what was going on a bit better with 2 people splitting the group in half or something like that. Or maybe in 2-player mode you get twice as many dudes. I don't know. So there was that, and I also kind of felt that there were a couple of bosses that didn't. Towards the back half of the game, I think that you get a couple of cheap bosses that are sort of just rehashes of older ones from earlier in the game. So there's a cop called Estelle that you fight, and a commissioner that you fight relatively early in the game, and they are separate bosses the first time through, for instance. But then in a later stage, you fight both of them at the same time, and they get slightly different attacks. but it's basically the same boss again, or both of them at the same time. So you're not really fighting anything massively new, and that also happens again with the stage 1 boss. You see her again, but there's 2 of her, and they have slightly different abilities, and it's like, all right. Not sure I'm on board with this reuse of boss thing in a game that's as short as it is. It's, that comes across as a little cheap,
a tiny bit, yeah.
And there were 2 unique bosses that I have minor problems with, not because they were hard or anything like that. One of them I just thought, oh, it's a level at a concert. I want some like super for as good as the music is, this was the level I wanted, a real banger of a music track, and I felt a little let down by that one. It's like it wasn't quite as beefy or as big and booming as I kind of wanted for the occasion. And I kind of thought the last boss was a bit rubbish because I don't know. I think I cheesed it. I think I found a way to cheese it, and it basically didn't really pose much of a threat to me. So it was kind of a walkover, and it's like, well, that's a shame. But that doesn't mean I didn't have a good time. I really did have a good time. It's a good game. So once you finish the story, it then unlocks some other stuff. Like you can do a boss rush mode. You can play each stage individually by choice now. So I can go and actually, pick what stage I want to do and try and high score it or up the difficulty level and just pick and choose what I want to do. You get the arcade run, which means you can play it like the original Streets of Rage and try and do the whole thing. You can probably get through it in a couple hours, I reckon, if you try and do it start to finish and don't screw up. But I haven't quite figured out if that means if your lives carry over, then I think that's actually going to be a bit tougher. Because you are actually going to have to try and, you can't rely on the fact that like at the end of the stage you're going to get your stock back. So that could be fun to attempt. You also get a one-on-one battle mode, so like you can double dragon it if you want, and just have it play it like a beat 'em up.
Okay, just for fun.
Yeah, just for fun. They put that in there as well, which is kind of cool.
That's so stupid at the end of Double Dragon.
But you could also like there's this thing that you'll notice at the end of every stage, like when you're playing it, you get this lifetime score counter start going up, and there's a couple of markers on this bar that go up, and it turns out those are unlockable characters that are basically the Streets of Rage 1 versions of the characters.
Okay.
Which is in all their pixely glory.
Sweet.
Just like really big. And they have their old movesets, and the way they play is exactly like the original. And it's like, that's pretty cool. So if I use the like Y is normally your kind of like special, but not the specials that you have a limited pool of. If you remember from Streets of Rage 1, if you used a special, it would call in the cop car would come in and fire like a rocket barrage. But you had like a limited number of those that you could use. Whereas in 4, your Y special is basically like an attack that has special properties but costs you health to use. Which you then have to try and not get hit for if you want to regain that health. You have to land punches in order to regain that health back. So it's kind of a risky attack to use, but it has some benefits if you manage to time it right, like some invincibility frames and things like that. Of course, you don't get those if you're using the Streets of Rage 1 character. You just get the rocket guy come in. So you don't have your Y special. You get your star special, let's call it. But that's there. He turns up, like fires a rocket barrage. It's cool. Yeah, and I think you can get the original 3 characters in Streets of Rage 1 form, and so that's neat. That's a nice little thing to go for. I'm going to play some more of it. I'm going to try and play some more. I'm going to try some harder difficulty levels. It has got online play, as we theorized last time. It's right there on the character selection screen. Like you can just be like, oh hey, press a button to launch this as an online game. I will find someone for you.
Pay you
I haven't
up.
tried yet, but I'll give that a go. I really like it. I think it's a good time. Good tunes in general.
Strong tunage.
Strong tunage.
Strong beating of bad guys.
Yeah. I had a very quick dabble in Forza Horizon 3 today.
Oh yeah, Forza 3.
3, yeah, because I fancied finishing the Hot Wheels stuff.
Oh yeah.
Which I did. I've raced every event in that now.
Nice.
And yeah, it ends as it starts. It is what it is.
Is that were you playing that on your new monitor?
I was playing that on my new monitor, yes. Which looks nice and sharp and runs very smooth indeed.
Sweet.
My biggest problem with Forza actually is nothing to do with the game itself, really. It's just how it forgets what your PC settings are, pretty much every time you launch it.
That's really annoying.
It's really frustrating. You'll launch it and it'll go, "Oh yeah, I reckon your PC can handle Ultra mode. Are you okay with this?" And it's like, I mean, yeah, I'm okay with that, but I'd rather you remembered the settings I specifically gave you last time.
Yeah.
Because sometimes when you do that, if it comes up with that option, you say, "Yeah, just run it in Ultra mode. It's fine."
It resets
everything.
everything.
Well, it sets most of the time. It's fine. Every now and then, it will decide to go, "Oh, I see. So you want Ultra settings, but you want to cap the frame rate at 30. That's fine." And I'm like, "No, that's not fine. I'd quite like you to cap the frame rate at 144 hertz,
Yeah.
please."
Why would I want that?
It's so weird. It's so bizarre. And also, Windows seems to have a bit of a problem with my steering wheel now, as maybe it's aged out or something. Where every now and then you plug it in, and Windows just doesn't let the pedals work. So I have to faff around with it for a bit, and then the pedals start working, and then it's like, okay, great, now I can play the game. Not every axis now works on the things.
How old is that wheel?
I mean, I'm using a was it a Thrustmaster GT at the moment, so I'm not using the Sidewinder. The Sidewinders have aged out with Windows 10.
You can't run the Sidewinder anymore.
I mean, you can, but I've had problems.
Yeah.
The age old problem I had with it was that when you could still use it to play Dirt Rally, but I noticed a significant frame rate drop.
Oh, that's not good.
When using the wheel. And the moment you unplug it, Dirt Rally sorted itself out. And it's maybe that's a problem with Dirt Rally, but I think I'd seen it in a couple of other places and I just sort of gave up with it. And then the opportunity to thieve this Thrustmaster came up, so I did.
Or it could just all be Rob's messed up USB.
I mean, I've changed PCs since then. This machine's had no problem with USB.
So if that's entirely true.
Ice had some issues with USB for some reason, but Fire's been fine.
Right.
Yeah, so I did that. Of course, well, the one new game I suppose I played this time was Hyperdot, which was a game with gold, I think, or Game Pass game on Xbox, because it's super simple. You are a dot. You're in a circle. You move around and complete some objectives. There isn't anything really more to that. Dodge some stuff for 20 seconds, or stay in this area whilst dodging stuff until you fill up a time bar. And it's super minimalist. That's kind of it, really. It's fine. If you've got if you need to kill 2 minutes, it's kind of perfect. You can fire it up, just do a couple of levels, you're done. There's a lot of levels. Hyperdot. And of course, I've been still working my way through Yakuza Kiwami 2.
Of course.
Because this game never ends.
I mean, it's not meant to. It's life, isn't it?
Exactly. I don't really want it to, but it is huge. I've been focusing my time on the Majima construction minigame quite a bit. So
you managing a construction business inside a gangster simulator,
which is basically just a gangster simulator in and of itself. It's tower defense.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've pretty much finished that now. I've still got like a side mission that's unlocked to do, but it's hard. I've done all the main story stuff in there, and it can take you quite a while, to be honest. And it was I think it was a relatively good idea to try and tackle it late on in my playthrough, because as you do side quests and things in that game, you meet people, and and if you do their side quests, and those guys will eventually sort of be hanging out in the city later on, and if you find them hanging out, a lot of the time they'll be like, "Oh, hey, I heard you're working with that construction company. Can I have a job?" And then they'll come be an extra pair of hands to fight for you in the construction minigame. So they kind of, doing the side quests feeds into the construction game, which is kind of cool. But it encourages you basically to not do the minigame until later on, when you've got a load of dudes that you might want to actually use.
Okay.
And going through the minigame itself actually unlocks more high-level dudes. So get enough dudes so you can get started, and then just use the high-level dudes you get from the construction game, and you'll be fine. There are some random high-level people you can find by doing the random recruiting thing, which has, in fairness, might be one of the best stupid moments of the game. Like the game is full of stupid stuff, but there's just something great about the recruitment poster, which is just Majima and a whole load of construction guys going, "Yay!" But then it just says at the bottom, "We build shit."
Majima, we build shit.
Yeah, this is the tone of the game.
I mean, that's a slogan.
Yep.
I mean, if I was looking for some builders to build me some shit, I'd go with Majima Construction.
And you can get a couple of random. I guess they're called. I don't know how to really describe these. They're kind of like the dating thing, but they're not really. They're kind of like, it's just a conversation that's playing out, but you can vaguely influence it by making dialogue choices at a couple of points. And I think how well you do can give you a reward at the end of it of some kind. But the rewards are always like super tiny and not really worth it. But the comedy is in just watching the scene play out. Like having a load of aging, probably marginally drunken guys talking about what food they want to eat, followed by tongue twisters in Japanese. It's just a bizarre thing to behold.
I mean, that's what these games are all about, right?
Yeah, just surrealism, I suppose. I think I'm, in fairness to it, I think I'm right near the end of the actual story now.
Okay. Things are gaining traction.
Yeah, we left Majima to defuse a bomb. Comedy ensues. Yeah, it's I still love it. I think, but it's coming to an end soon, and I'll have to think about what I'm going to do next. Which, after so much Yakuza, is a dark time.
Oh dear. I mean, no. Go back to Shenmue. No. I don't know.
I don't think that'd be nearly as surreal enough for me. It'll be too
play Sleeping Dogs or something.
I'll tell you what, I haven't really played the last 2 weeks. I should have started with this in Zach fashion.
What's that?
Gears Tactics.
Hmm.
I have played it, but just not that much, and there's nothing really to say about it.
So let's not.
Yeah, it's just doing what it was doing. It's a shame. I expected more.
Can't win them all.
Yeah, which then makes the Steam advert panel all the more confusing. Where it's one of those graphics where it's it's got IGN excellent 9 out of 10, fantastic 9 out of 10, 4 stars, 5 stars, and I'm like, I mean, it's good, but it's not that good. It's no XCOM.
Well, exactly.
I might do some more of it. Maybe. We'll see. We'll see how I feel.
Right. that you then, Rob?
It is.
Speaking of nostalgia, I've been playing Halo 2 for some reason.
Cool.
Yeah.
Which version? Have you been playing that PC Master Chief version that came out?
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah. Back in the day, Halo 2 had the awesome multiplayer, obviously, along with Xbox Live, and really kickstarted all that stuff. But I was actually kind of disappointed in Halo 2 back when it came out, as a big fan of the original game.
Right, the campaign's not the same, is it?
No, but although like it did have like. So I think famously they had that epic E3 demo or whatever, where it was like which showed the city and the mounting of the what's it called, where you steal the vehicle off someone and what's that called? Hijacking or whatever, yeah. And
that. I feel like it's got a more specific name in Halo.
But that sequence was so awesome, and with the Gauss cannon and everything and stuff, and it was like, oh, Halo 2 is going to be amazing, and the graphics look really good. But then, like, they kind of, they must have been under so much pressure, Bungie, after that original game or whatever and stuff, and trying to put it together. And they'd done this demo, which kind of over-egged it a bit. But I was looking into it, and apparently, like they had this, Shadows, real-time Shadows engine, just like Doom 3. It was around the same time.
The stencil thing.
Yeah, and they had to cut it out. And so they wanted a combination of real-time Shadows and normal maps, right? Bump maps everywhere. So their plan was, now we can do bump maps. Well, we can lower the number of polys on every single model and just put a load of bump maps all over them, and then we can have way more stuff going on. But like the end result when you took out the shadows is I don't know. It's kind of grimy.
There are parts of it that definitely don't look great. And it's like if you I would recommend the Digital Foundry breakdown.
There's a good breakdown
as always, but they do a really good job this time of. Well, actually, I say they do a really good. There were a couple of elements of the Halo 2 original presentation that they don't touch on at all.
Yeah.
In which I'm surprised about, like the texture streaming issues, for instance. On the original version were
things popping in like crazy. Yeah,
it were unbelievable, and Foundry don't mention that, but
they were
which is
crazy. So yeah, and there's a whole load of aspects to it, and it ended up a bit sort of next gen brownie in a way that the original game wasn't, and like weirdly,
yeah,
and like I don't know. Anyway, it's not just the graphics, like also the game itself, like Halo 1 had it had nothing really like the Silent Cartographer or something. It was a bit more, even though it had some big environments, it kind of felt more linear. Like when you got to Delta Halo, it didn't really feel like being on a Halo anymore because it was just felt a bit more constrained.
Tunneled.
Yeah, it was more tunneled. But
was it that first Halo level and Silent Cartographer? They're kind of unique, to be honest, in the Halo series in general. And they're only really in that first game.
Well, you've got Assault on the Control Room and Two Betrayals. Like that, it's kind of tunnely, but it does have some massive areas, right?
I guess,
in between the kind of ridiculous, sequences of rooms, and bridges.
Yeah, and you're right. There's a very linear level, but it's still. It has the feeling of
like a canyon,
isn't it? The areas are bigger. Perhaps than pretty much anything threw at you. Yeah.
It sort of lost a kind of sense of scale there, even while it was trying to be kind of more epic in many ways. Halo 2, and also like they were trying to do like not that awkwardly, but it's one of those cases where the sequel has to expand the universe, and in some ways they're kind of retconning, right? Because it's like, okay, now the scope of the Halo universe fitted that story, but now we have to like massively expand the universe. So we have to be like, okay, you've got the whole the brutes and like the whole story, but not just like there are more enemies. I just mean like in terms of the story, like the way that it starts with the Arbiter and everything, and has the kind of parallel stories. I actually think that stuff was really good. And
the opening in particular is pretty great, actually. I think it's a little jarring from the Master Chief side if you weren't familiar with the first game.
Exactly. Yeah, that's true.
Which as a standalone product, Halo 2's opening isn't necessarily so good.
Yeah,
but as a
if you're
direct
familiar with
follow-on, it's decent. And I think at the time it was probably a smart idea to like, okay, now we need to actually probably talk about the Covenant, right? They can't just be a mysterious foe anymore. That's what they did.
Them. And I thought it was a bit weird how they, they're all speaking English and stuff, but they had to, and it actually was quite interesting and cool, and it's quite a good. It ended up with quite a good universe, and they didn't screw it up, basically that part anyway. So I was always kind of down on Halo 2 in many ways because of those issues, but this has the anniversary thing treatment, and like I don't know what they learned in between doing the first game, but like they've done a great job on this remaster, like on this anniversary. Like you can flick back and forth between the graphics, and like with the original Halo, like you could see the change in when they remastered that Combat Evolved, you could see the change in art style and be like, I'm not sure I agree with the way that they've interpreted this view. Whereas every time I switch back and forth in Halo 2, I'm like, that old game looked pretty bad and this looks great.
Yeah. We've talked about this ad nauseum, but there's certain elements of Halo. Halo 1 strikes me as perhaps a harder remaster because there were parts of it where things were kind of intentionally flat.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. And looking at that, and I think Saber Interactive, who did both of these ones, they took the first one and were like, well, let's embellish this.
Yeah.
And sometimes changing it a little dramatically from the original feel.
They especially went a bit far with that stuff. One. Yeah. But they seem to have got it pretty right for Halo 2. And one thing that's very noticeable when you switch between is they've redone all the audio like really, really well, including like this. They completely re-recorded the score, with the San Francisco Symphony Orchestra and everything, and it's blaring like crazy throughout the opening sequences, and it's like freaking epic. Like it's like they're going all out like big Hollywood movie basically for this, and that's kind of what it is in terms of games. It's like the big epic Hollywood movie kind of thing, isn't it?
There are parts of the soundtrack that there are some shames, shall we say, in the soundtrack element because they weren't able to retain the rights to all of it.
Oh, okay.
Because Halo 2 is the outlier in the soundtrack department because they got help from quite a lot of bands.
Oh, I see.
There's a track by Breaking Benjamin in there, for instance, that was written for Halo 2, but I don't think they were able to bring back for this anniversary release. It's really bothering me now. But there's indie rock group of some noteworthiness did the sequence when you're Arbiter doing the escape basically in Banshees, which isn't in this version. Those are really standout, brilliant bits of music that really fit with the game. Yeah, and it's a shame those haven't returned. Their replacements aren't bad.
That is a shame, though.
But I'm just very fond of those bits of music, and they're not here.
Enough. Yeah, so I hadn't noticed anything too much like that, but obviously that's
what I mean. The replacements are good. It's just not those. Yeah,
exactly. Like if you know that game back to front, then you're going to know. But me, I'm like, Halo 2, you forget. Like, well, I don't know, but they did move the gameplay forward. Like the original Halo was kind of it was revolutionary in its kind of, with the shield system and everything. But it had its foot halfway in the past by still having the health bar or whatever, and you having to have health packs and stuff. And they just completely ditched that by Halo 2, right? And it's got the dual wielding and everything, which is a bit complicated, but slightly complicates it compared to the original game. But it's definitely
there's a little bit of finger Tetris to play, isn't it? Finger gymnastics to get your head around. But it mostly works pretty well. It
mostly works quite well, and it's all present in Halo 2 and carries on for future Halos. So basically the core gameplay is fully there in Halo 2 and plays really well. I think there's some, like I noticed in the options, there's like movement style or like aiming style is like modern or something, and you can switch it back to classic Halo or something. So I haven't tried that, but the way it comes out of the box is like really good. So maybe play. Maybe you aim like Call of Duty. I don't know, but
yeah, I think
it
that's
seems to work.
where I think I changed a couple of things around that, just because I'm used to, I guess maybe because of Call of Duty's fault, and maybe because of Halo 5's fault to some degree.
Yeah.
Where I've just changed how I play a little bit,
modern
so I do
style.
have to
But that's
tweak, and
nice,
to the point where Zach and I have diverged quite a bit in our control schemes. I think,
right?
like the way I think when I've seen Zach set it up, it's like he plays. I think you play quite default, quite original, don't you, Zeg? Or
Yeah, mostly.
Yeah, whereas I have to set it to one of the more modern things now. Otherwise, I just forget where everything is.
I mean, I've always played the weird green thumb or something mode ever since the original Halo, I think. So I always have to change my controls.
Not a bumper jumper.
No, I'm not a bumper jumper. But it's cool. You can customize all that. And yeah, so I'm actually like, because what I meant was, like, at first I was kind of disappointed that the best remaster is of the game I like the least. But actually, it's the one that probably needed the most help.
Yeah.
And it's actually rehabilitated to some extent, and I'm quite enjoying it.
And in terms of the PC ports of Master Chief Collection, it's noteworthy because it's the good one.
It's the good one. Yeah, it's the good one all round, really.
They haven't ballsed this one up in some way.
This one seems fine. And it plays fine on my PC, so...
Are you said you were still controllering, were you? So
yeah, fully controlling. Yeah.
You haven't been tempted to mouse and keyboard?
No, I don't think I can use mouse and keyboard anymore because of my RSI.
Yeah,
I mean, I can just about do Obra Dinn with my left hand, but I don't think I'd be running around shooting anymore. Sadly, but never mind. At least when Half-Life 3 finally came out, it didn't need a mouse and keyboard.
True. Yeah.
Anyway,
also, if you got into your Call of Duty, the future is cross-platform based on your controller usage on any platform.
Right.
That's the one thing COD have done super well in that last iteration. So if you want to play on controller on PC, go for it. You're going to be matched with other controller users.
That's really good. Yeah, that's really cool. Cool. Yeah, so that's what I've been playing. I should probably play some more Halo 2.
I don't know how... Actually, that's interesting. I don't know how Master Chief Collection on PC has decided to do that distinction.
Well, you could buy them separately, actually, but I just bought the whole thing, so I've got...
No, I mean, like, in terms of the multiplayer control stuff.
Oh, I'm not sure.
Presumably, you wouldn't want to matchmatch with a controller on PC if you're going to get matchmade against mouse and keyboard users.
Yeah, you're going to get crushed. I would have thought they'd have thought of that, but we'll see. I haven't looked into it yet. Yeah, but the Halo 2 multiplayer is not Halo 2 multiplayer, is it?
You get both. So there were Halo 2 Anniversary multiplayer and Halo 2 multiplayer.
Right. And Halo 2 Anniversary multiplayer is based on like Halo 4 or something, isn't it?
No, it's based on Halo 2 still. But there are balance tweaks and slight map changes, and it's a subset of the maps as well. They didn't do all of them, so it's a slightly different experience. Halo 2 Anniversary multiplayer.
Fair enough.
But you can play the original exactly as it was if you like.
That's a good option. Good to have it for nostalgia, basically.
For nostalgia.
Cool. And that's what I've been playing. And that's a podcast nearly. What have we got in terms of lockdown content?
We've got more Obra Dinn on the way.
Yeah.
So Obra Dinn Part 4 will release next week.
Yeah, so enjoy the din that we make over the top of playing that game.
Yeah, well, we get horrendously confused.
We'll figure it out one day.
I think you said that exact sentence in the video.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out one day.
That's the thing, is like supposedly like everyone loves that game after they finished it, obviously, when they figured it out, because they think they're so clever for figuring everything out. I really think the hammocks thing is going to help us, so we'll see.
Yeah, my worry is we'll reach a point where it's just like there's, in terms of video content, where it's just like
it's just us standing around,
like not saying anything because we're thinking or something.
Yeah,
or
we'll see. We might have to have a thinkathon and then come and not touch anything and then come back and say, well, we thought about this.
Or, I might actually have to do some work and edit a video properly.
Oh no.
Can't have that.
Anything but that. Okay, cool. That's a podcast. We shall catch you in a couple of weeks for another Saladcast. Bye.